an award-winning camera, the best camera for stress-free photography, and the best mid-range mirrorless you can get. These were labels getting put on the Sony A7 IV when it first came out. Ever since its release, the A7 IV has been dubbed as the camera to replace its game-changing predecessor, the A7 III. And with new technology getting integrated to the A7 IV, it is no wonder why the camera was so hot when it first came out. However, there were some issues that people experienced with the A7 IV when it first came out. From quirks such as overheating, random freezing, and so many more, Sony has done a pretty good job to fix a lot of those problems with the A7 IV. But with so many new cameras getting released every single year, is the Sony A7 IV still a camera beloved by its community? Hi, my name is Sam and I love storytelling and content making. And today's content is one we are covering on the flaw of the Sony A7 IV. Now I love the Sony A7 IV. And in fact, I'm using one right now and it's still my main camera till this day. I even made a video about how good it is even in 2024. And first thing first is firmware updates. You see, a lot of people assume that it is a universal thing for companies to feature block their product. People would say, well, of course, they're a company. Of course, they would want to encourage people to buy more of their newer stuff. And although that holds true, we still have to admit the fact that doing it at the expense of your customer's experience is a pretty shitty thing to do. Plus, many other cameras companies like Canon's and Panasonic, they all from time to time provide firmware updates with actual things that people are going to use on their cameras. Whereas if you buy the Sony cameras and enter the Sony ecosystem, don't expect the firmware updates to bring anything new to you. Just buy it for the feature it has right now, because next year Sony is gonna release a new camera and the older camera will be left hanging with nothing. Second point I want to make is the outdated hardware, because having everything in a camera in today's world is like collecting stones for the Infinity Gauntlet. And what is even more irritating is the fact that we see new cameras getting released every year, but it's not complete. There are small missing things in every cameras that are released, and that really frustrates me. Outdated flip-out screen design, outdated AF sensor, outdated external. These are just some of the few things the A7 IV misses on because it was released in 2021. And in just a period of less than 3 years, so many cool features are given to newer cameras, and it sometimes makes my 2-year-old A7 IV feels so obsolete. But to be honest, I don't blame the A7 IV for its lacking features, but instead, I believe it is the fault of the company. They want to excite customers by releasing new things every year. And with cameras, something that we use for years, and releasing it almost every year, that really disappoints the people who get into the Sony ecosystem. And I wish Sony would release new camera every 2 to 3 years with crazy and amazing features. That is something that I believe would be a much better things to do business-wise and also in building brand loyalty. And a final point that I want to make is on the pricing. You see, the A7 IV, despite all the flaws I've mentioned earlier, it's actually a pretty good camera as a whole. Very well balanced between videos and photos capability. But when we talk about the price, well, when it first came out, the price was actually good for what you get. But with newer cameras coming out every year, it's becoming a bit harder for me to recommend the A7 IV. It's a full-frame mirrorless, but people who ask me for camera advice, a lot of the time I would just send them to buy an A6700, an APS-C camera, cheaper, and it has arguably more features than the A7 IV. And although, yes, personally I love the quality that is taken on the A7 IV more than the A6700, which I used to borrow from a friend and actually make a comparison, the A7 IV has better quality, but the price, it's a bit hard for me to recommend. And for beginner, I would just advise them to wait for the newer Sony camera to come out, or just buy the A6700 instead. And I believe the price is a problem, because it was not like this before. In the past, new cameras get released with crazy good features, but now cameras getting released every year with almost like a phone, whereby there is slight improvement and the price still remain the same. So I feel like it's very not worth it to get the A7 IV with that price tag. But if you get it juiced and the price is massively discounted, then go for it. It's a very good camera. I make a video about how good it is. I still love it. But yeah, the price makes it a bit hard for me to recommend, especially to beginners or amateur photographers and videographers. And so, with stagnant firmware updates, outdated hardware and pricing, the A7 IV is a near-perfect mid-range camera that I personally found difficult to recommend straight to people. But nonetheless, I still believe that if you're looking for a great hybrid full-frame cameras and with a mid-range price, the A7 IV is still the camera that I would recommend to you. And especially if budget is not your constraint, then go for the A7 IV. The photo looks amazing, video downsample from 7K to 4K looks amazing, and I definitely will not have a problem recommending those who do not have a budget constraints. And with Sony business move being the way it is right now, how long will its customers stay with its brand? And how long will customer continue to have the brand loyalty toward the company? Will they switch to other cameras company? Well, only time will tell for that question. And if you have any opinions, make sure to leave your thoughts down below. And thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Thanks, goodbye, and peace.